but conceptually understanding how a business should be run. And that series is called Traction. And the book that, and this is what sparked my thinking into this, the book that really kind of helped me understand spatially what my role was, and that it was okay not to be the granular operations manager.
I was just saying, it's like old habit now. Isn't that nice? Congratulations to you, my friend, to us, episode 10. I'm sure it's, how have you seen the improvements? What have you noticed in terms of what we're starting to dial in a little bit better each time?
The process. So kind of preparing rather than just riffing, kind of having an agenda, which is great. Some technical stuff that we've had issues with, so we apologize to the audience. So I do, because it wasn't Eddie. Some mic stuff and figuring that stuff out to get it kind of dialed in. But the base of it isn't something I think that we were trying to find. I guess like you just have good conversations, and that's the root of the whole thing. Everything else is just kind of the how do we deliver better conversations, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're
about you,
if you're new here, first of all, welcome to the Relevant Agent Podcast. We've been doing this now. This is episode 10. I'm sorry. The last couple, like Alex was saying, were a little rough with the audio, so we apologize, and we appreciate you sticking around. What are you sticking around for? Well, you're sticking around for a couple of guys who have been in this industry called real estate for plus or minus 20 years now. You're sticking around because you're interested in figuring out, what is my next move in real estate. Although we speak in a broader sense, sometimes we'll hone in on our fellow agents who are a little bit older, who've been in the market for a while, have been in the industry for a while, because there's a lot of, tactics, ideas, processes that we can share, experiences basically from all those years. So we'd love for you to stick around. But yeah, man, for me, it's been just the cadence and the regularity, and like anything else, right? It's tried and true. Practice makes perfect. We care about what we're doing here. We care about delivering some real value and real help to the agents that follow us on the pod. And so I know we're both committed to making this even better. And I appreciate everyone that's sticking around. And if this is your first episode, definitely check out our previous ones. We're here to give value, and I enjoy it, man. I just, like you said, it's for us, our conversations are pretty easy, but dialing in some of the really kind of specific things that we want to share is a process we continue to do. And, we'll just be transparent. Like we started to share, Apple Notes, right? So creating a little note, start to share some ideas, kick them around, refine them a little bit, and then also figure out how we're going to go from one concept to the other. But again, we're trying to pick up topical things that are happening right now that matter to you as a real estate agent that's looking to build their business and practice real estate successfully, and things that are tried and true, right? So we'll always tap in some of the older stuff that we think is still very valuable, and then we sprinkle in there some of the magic that we find through technology currently, but also through our brokerage at EXP. And so I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Well, let's get into it.
What do we got on the docket today?
Yeah, let's get right into it. So, second to patting ourselves on the back and making it 10 episodes and uploading 10 times straight every week here on YouTube. I wanted to get into, speaking of tips, because I just mentioned it, was looking back on your career, Alex, and I'll dive into, because I'm sure I'll probably echo some of these things, and then I'll punch in with a few things too. But looking back on the journey of real estate over these past 20 or odd years, what would you have done differently to have made things a little bit easier, to maybe eliminate some of that initial struggle? Because obviously hindsight's 2020. What would have been some things for you?
Yeah. Well, when I first started, there weren't we talked about this a little bit before, so I had some time to think about it. When I first started, there weren't CRMs. We've talked about CRMs before. Whichever one you use, a la Tom Ferry, is the one that's best for you. So if I was new, I would say setting up a CRM, getting in there every single day, and prospecting without negotiation, meaning like setting that time aside every single day, no matter what, before the day gets away and I meant to make my calls and I didn't. And I did it more than most, I would say. I put a lot of time in on the phone, and it bore results. I would just be a little more intentional with it, and I think that's where the CRM kind of comes in. It just focuses you. Of like, there isn't, this notepad over here and this sticky over there, and oh yeah, I forgot to call that person. Oh, this reminded me of that. It's like, no, just like the CRM right in front of you. There's no, I got to remember, oh yeah, that person. It's all right there. Then, there's drip campaigns and stuff that work kind of in the background while you're not, calling, touching people. So that would be probably the top thing that I would do differently. Not necessarily, it would make things easier, and it would make things more profitable too, because there'd be more of a streamlined approach to it. Second thing, I would measure my numbers more closely. Like, where's my business coming from? Is and in the beginning, people are like, I don't have any business. It's like, okay, well, just when you don't have any, that's probably maybe the best place to start to look at that and get in that habit before it gets. I had 150 closings in the last 3 or 4 years. Where the hell did they come from?
Well, I would start there. Let me jump in real quick and interrupt you, just because I'm curious, and hopefully this brings value to people watching and listening. But when you said you dive into your CRM and you're religious about it, you're very good about it, you're always timely about it. Who were you actually trying to target? And who was in your database in those early days? Where did this come from? And were you already trying to specialize, or whoever was next on the list, you called them based on the relationship? That's what you talked about. Or did you hone in on sellers or buyers, or what was that like?
I guess that's kind of my point, is I didn't have any. Like, it was just the shotgun approach. So it was like, I'm going to call it for sale by owner here, and I heard an expired thing over here. And I would do it, and it would work, and then I would do something else, and then I would do something else. So it's like you can't find what works unless you measure it, right? Like, is it working? How many calls did I have to make to get to for sale by owner, to create an appointment, to get it? It was so shotgunned and not organized that I didn't. So I don't know if that. I appreciate you asking the question, because I think it drives it home a little bit more.
So that was then. So if we stay on that for a moment, what about now? What would you say to somebody now who's also sitting down for the first time? Do you still do shotgun, or do you niche before you even sit down and I'm only speaking to such and such people?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good point. I would say you want to probably look at it as pillars. Think of it like maybe 3 or 4, probably more like 3. So it'd be like a pillar would be, example would be a sphere. That's one pillar. Then for sale by owners or expireds or whatever. Then, my pay-per-click campaign, I'm doing Zillow. So look at it as in pillars, and focusing on that pillar. And not going, I think I'll try this, or I think I'll try, because to your point, like, practice makes perfect. It takes some time on task to understand what's really kind of going on, and also to become an expert, as close as you can be, like, just because it's constantly changing. But for sale by owners are a pretty constant thing. They think they're saving money because they're, listing it on their own, or they're putting it just online and saving all this money. What are the conversations around that? You're really not saving money, Like, getting to be an expert of, these are the, 10 objections or reasons why people are doing the for sale by owner thing. And here's here's why that's not advantageous to you. So it takes time to learn that. That's what I mean. Sticking with that.
That's actually a similar path that I took when I started too. Was the for sale by owner route and also the expired route. So those were basically my one and two, which is obviously not uncommon as a place to start, because we would consider that the lower hanging fruit, right? These are people that want to sell, that have raised their hand and say, yeah, I'm trying to sell. It's not somebody that has not raised their hand in any capacity to say that they're interested in selling, completely cold. Mm-hmm. So we know that, and we know that they're adverse to potentially paying a commission, or they're very short, which tends to be the minority. It's most people that don't want to pay a commission, but some that the equity in the house, and depending on the market we were in right back there, and there might not have been enough equity in the house to pay a commission. And so, that was a different kind of conversation or a different set of challenges to overcome. But yeah, I would say that that's definitely a path that I took to build my career. And also one little tip I also used to do too, and I thought it was, I forget who shared it with me, but I thought it was brilliant because I did it and it was really good, was your point about doing reps. So in my immediate market back when I was in Chicago, my immediate market that I was trying to serve and get a foothold of was small enough to where sometimes there wasn't enough new contacts to be made, new prospects to reach out to. And so what I would do, I would just start calling other people, and even in other states, to talk to them about their FSBO or expired, because I just wanted reps.
Wow.
I just wanted the reps. And we know that you may make 100 calls and you only get maybe one or two that are potentially viable, right? But what the piece of advice came was like, yeah, if you get it or if it becomes something, just refer it out. Ding. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not a waste of time, and I can still practice my craft.
Yeah.
That really accelerated things. And that reminded me of how important it was, to your point, was to hone in on that skill and become very proficient, expert level on that. So yeah, just a little, this is that stuff, man.
That's awesome, man. All the people in other states to get reps. Yeah, that's awesome.
Just to get reps. Because at that point you understood that reps were going to do it, especially if you were zeroing in. And I didn't know anything from anything back then when I was first starting. So you're taking, like anything else, you take advice from others that you can see I've done something successfully. So I'm like, okay, if it worked for them, it's got to work for me, right? If I do it and if I follow it, all I have to do is parrot everything that they're doing, and I may get there. And so, yeah, that was something that I thought was really kind of pivotal. And then it also takes the fear away, which is also a big challenge of doing these things. But not to interrupt kind of where you were, it just reminded me of that in the moment.
That's a great example of like focusing on a pillar. Because I've heard that too before. I ran out of for sale by owners to call.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to call people at other, like Florida's a big state. I'm sure you can find a lot in Florida. You don't even need to go to other states. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and if it happens to fall on your lap, okay, just refer it out.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. Yeah. And I did. And that referral money doesn't hurt. 25 or 30% of something, especially when you're getting started, could add up. And all you're doing is you're getting better. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
But you were saying being on the CRM.
I think, let me dig on that a little bit more, dude, because I think that there's a little bit more to squeeze out of that lemon. I lost it. Never mind. The lemon's been squeezed.
Yeah. We'll probably bounce back to it. But I mean, you were going into also the just being in the CRM each and every day, and dedicating that prospecting time.
I would go
the no fail aspect.
I would go along the lines of numbers. This is something I speak to folks from the future, and literally, man, I've just started working on some of this stuff even this year. Two things. I would advise people to get an accountant, and if that accountant has a service that has like a bookkeeping, so you can start to categorize where the expenditures are, and you start looking at profit or not. That's important. I I wish that I had done that much earlier. And I'll say this as well. It's probably maybe going to fall in some deaf ears, but I hope maybe it'll reach one person. You got to put money aside for taxes. I know we've probably heard it before, but it bit me even when I knew, bro. Even when I knew. And I thought this was, I have a staff now, and sometimes, I'm still learning how to be a leader. I'm still learning how to run an organization and all that. And I thought money was being put away, and it wasn't. And I got whacked. And so I had to play big time catch up, not just for a year, like for a couple years. And you'd think, people probably look at me like, oh, I got everything dialed in. It's like, nope, made that mistake. So anyways, we got that all squared away and got a nice healthy, we're caught up and we, healthy for this year. And then dovetailing into that, look, if you are an independent contractor, you can put money into an IRA. And this is like another level of, if I speak to you from the future, we're looking, and then if you get a staff, you can actually start to you can put more money into and this is tax free. So you're basically if you had profit, let's say you had, $100,000 in profit, you could take a certain amount of that out. And so that's not taxable. So you're putting and I get it now. And I had a different investment strategy where I didn't believe in the stock market as much as a lot of people did. And I went a little bit of a contrarian different way. And I went the gold way, and gold's not doing good. It's a relation of the money supply. But that's another story. But my point is, look at putting money into an IRA, because especially if you're starting now and you want this to be your career or you want this to be your profession, whatever we call it, in 10, 20 years, if you put, $5,000 away, just $5,000 over 10 years, that's going to be, it's not the $5,000, it's going to compound. And that's the Einstein. Einstein was a pretty smart guy, but what he said, it's the, I don't know, the eighth wonder of the world or something like that. The compound interest is amazing, and the S&P is going at about, I think as an aggregate, 8.5%, something like that. I would do that. So I know it maybe sound boring, but I think it's important, and I hope someone takes some advice and doesn't end up, 20 years later going, shit.
Yeah, I mean, from a larger perspective, obviously it's so important to set yourself up financially from the very beginning. If you're really saying, I'm going to be in this, I'm really going to build a business here, and I'm going to be in it for the long haul, to have that. But I guess even if you only do it for the short term or doing it part time, certainly the tax habits, the financial habits that you need to create to keep yourself clean and to keep your nose clean and not get jammed up. And thank you for sharing that, because, it's not the easiest thing to say or to admit to, but it's something that a lot of us, and I was guilty as well. I think, oh yeah, I'm going to guess it's going to be like this much and I'll be fine, or I'll wait for that big closing, or that big closing is coming at the end of the year, and I'll take care of that bill when that closing happens. And the closing happens or it doesn't, almost irrelevant. It's just not a good habit to get into. And that's what, those were the early habits that I got into. And again, it coincided a lot with kind of what you're saying too, is the more you're building a business and you've got other people around you, the more you start to see it in a different way. But also, even if you are not disciplined enough to see it in a different way, or see the bigger picture, or see the level of responsibility that comes with building a team and building a bigger business, undoubtedly you're surrounding yourself with those tax and accounting professionals that will at least tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, are you doing this? And be like, oh, no, I didn't realize that. And then, you get a different or a higher level of acumen around, taxes and accounting. But yeah, the sooner you can get on it, even if you think it's so soon, you're like, I've only made a couple of checks, or I'm just getting started. Let me see how it goes. The idea of, insulating yourself from some heavy Uncle Sam consequences that can come is something you really should think about, whether, you still manage your business as an independent. In terms of a taxpayer versus, creating an LLC. And we're obviously not here to give tax advice. It's all different for everybody. And you need to find competent people around you. And that's probably a good way to start is to maybe, reach out to somebody that you also know and respect, not only for their lead generation advice, but also, hey, how are you managing your business? Who can I contact? Who's in your Rolodex that you really like and trust? That's going to be really foundational for you.
Kind of a drab subject, but it's probably one of the most important.
It is a drab
lessons that I learned.
Right. It's not exciting, but when it goes wrong, it can really go wrong, and it can really hinder.
Yeah.
It could really hinder your progress. It could hurt relationships with your significant other. You're just a whole roller coaster of things, and it just puts on some undue stress or unnecessary stress that just doesn't have to be. And you're right. It's not interesting. It's not sexy. It's not none of that. It's not fun to hand over, 20, 30%, 15%, whatever it is to somebody else, especially when you're making a lot of money, but you got to do it. It's just one of those things. But lastly on this topic, you're talking about working your sphere more too. So that's before we got onto the exciting world of taxes, working your sphere more. And you were also referring to kind of like, and this is, I don't know if you still do this a lot or if it was more of an early thing, but marketing pieces, like physical marketing pieces that you would send out. Is that what you wished you did more? What do you think that would have looked like or can look like now?
Yeah. Work in the sphere more. So back to the CRM, they're in your sphere. You should be calling your sphere probably at least 4 times a year, so every quarter. And if you have a CRM, there's probably some kind of drip in there for a long-term nurture that's kind of just going out to them. And frankly, most people are just going to delete it, but they see you. So that's I call those just little touches. They're occupying someone's brain space with, that's what all marketing is, right? We're trying to vie for people's attention, or just not pay attention to me, like, hey, remember me, I sell real estate, remember me when you're thinking, when that time comes, because they're not thinking about you or nobody's thinking about you in that regard until if and when the time comes we're thinking about buying or selling. So I would if I was to say to that new person out there, and even maybe a team leader out there, is getting the CRM in, categorizing them as a sphere, and then what I've started to do. I've done this every year. I've done a Christmas card. I know, whatever. Where am I going with this? That's like one touch, but I've literally had people that I haven't talked to in years, and I sent them that Christmas card with myself and my daughter, and kind of just what the year was like. And I get your Christmas cards every year, and I hadn't talked to them in years. So imagine if I had been sending them something like we're doing right now with a company called Real Marketing. We've looked at a lot of different print and that, and they do a good job. They do a nice piece, and so that's going out every other month to the sphere. I've partnered with a lender, so actually they pay for half of it. Now they get half of the space on the card, but I don't care. I mean, it's just like I'm there. It's getting in front of them. It's a beautiful piece of material, and I've gotten compliments on it. So if I was starting out and people, well, I don't know, it's like, well, if you had 50, if you had 100, I'm just saying that's what I would have done differently, and I'm starting to do it now of more consistently getting out to that sphere and past clients. So, I do think print still is effective, because I've heard it from people, not just from the Christmas card of, oh, your daughter's cute and all that, which she gets more. Everybody loves Catalina, but the really nice, rich marketing piece, and it doesn't cost a lot. And what are you going to invest in your business? For 100 postcards or 100 really nice brochures for, $300,
right?
$350.
So then and now,
that's
still been, and they make it easier. So, but then and now, it's been an effective piece for you, and the fact that you're bringing it back in, and is probably a testament that it's, still very relevant and still helpful, and you're getting the right feedback from it to make it worth your while. Have you been able to, this is one of the things that I always think about too in terms of marketing overall, is are you able to track any way of how effective it is?
We just started the print brochures to the Sphere a couple months ago, so like the second one's going out now. The only way right now, so I don't have anybody saying come over and list my house or buy, but what I am getting are people saying, hey, that's a really nice piece.
Great.
So that tells me that it, like, and some of them say, it was so nice that I didn't want to throw it away. Like, just comments like that, I'm like, okay, that's good. Now, what we're going to do at the end of this year again, which, is like, this stuff is like so old school, but, we're going to do magnets. Because it's like we're already sending out the Christmas card. Why not just put a magnet in there? It's another, 30 cents for the postage or whatever for the weight. But, now that is going to hopefully go up on the refrigerator. And now as they walk by that every single day, you're getting space in their head of like, oh yeah, Alex isn't real. Like they're walking by that on the refrigerator. Those things work. They work. And I've been to many listing appointments where people are like, yeah, I tried to call those people on the magnet. They're not around anymore. Right? So like, this like ratty old magnet that's been sitting on that refrigerator for however long. And they're like, yeah, we've been walking by it for years and we were going to sell and we called them and they don't even exist anymore. So there you go. It works. That stuff works.
It's amazing how we have these conversations about AI and the latest tech. And then we talk about a magnet or a refrigerator or a magnet on your refrigerator. And yeah, it all has its place, right? It's just how effective you are with producing it and how consistent you are with putting that message out.
Yeah. Yeah. And we could talk about it like some of the other little stuff, like in the postcard itself, we have a QR code. What's my house worth? We have a QR code in there, and check out my YouTube page. So it's hard to say because when the QR code goes in, I don't know who goes to the YouTube site or whatever, but no, we probably do. Take that back. There was a tracking in that. I just haven't got on that yet. So
there probably is some tracking as to who's opening that,
tracking.
Who's following it, which is also valuable because then you can retarget them and contact them again. Who do you have? At what point, for those watching, at what point do you go from these are things and outreaches, and I'm kind of almost pulling it back to your prospecting calls and your prospecting reach outs more so than these little marketing pieces. But at what point do you decide or pivot to having someone else on the team, or maybe it's your first assistant or just another team member because you've got a few people on the team, that you kick that to them versus Alex making the phone call?
As soon as possible. As soon as possible. But, if you don't have the money to do that, but I get that. As far as hires go, I think that and we maybe mentioned this in other episodes, and maybe it's going to sound super redundant, got to go with the transaction and listing coordinator. That's first hire. 100%. And even if you're just getting into the business, I don't have enough money to hire. Like they get paid when the transaction closes. You're literally not paying them till closing. And I still get the pushback from even people in my organization that I try to not on the team, but in the EXP organization that I try to coach and help them grow their businesses, and that are good producing agents, and they still just hold on to that. Well, when I get more going, I'm like, you sold 3 or 4 properties last month. Like you posted on Facebook all this stuff, and I see your numbers. Like you capped over. Like you got the money. Like, and you don't even have to spend the money. You spend the money. The money comes out at closing. So that's the first hire. That next hire that's a tough one, man. I mean, I've been so blessed to have just an amazing operations manager. So I would maybe shift gears here a little bit and suggest a book. Have you ever you heard of the Traction series?
No, I don't think so.
You'd really like it, man. Yeah, so it's a book called Traction.
Traction.
No, Traction.
Traction.
As in splint traction.
Got it.
Getting traction. It's basically a concept. Who is the guy that started the Sweat Hogs? I'm trying to think of his last name because it's his son that started the company. But my point is, they run a system called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And so what we're talking about here right now is just kind of like, okay, taxes and how do you run a business? And this gentleman, and I'll think of his name in a second, he basically found that a lot of entrepreneurs were not good business owners, not good runners of business, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're like, I'm an entrepreneur. Okay, well, I want to go and do this great idea or whatever, but you don't really, that's a great idea, and you do want to take risk, and you want to go out there and try something, and awesome. And being a real estate agent is an entrepreneur to me, because there's no guarantee. It's you. Now, you can get some insights and tools and all that, which we're trying here to deliver. But conceptually, understanding how a business should be run. And that series is called Traction. And the book that, and this is what sparked my thinking into this, the book that really kind of helped me understand spatially what my role was. And that it was okay not to be the granular operations manager. It's okay. Like, you're the leader. Now, in the beginning, you got to kind of wear a lot of hats, right? And try to get that tax thing, take that hat off. Don't go to QuickBooks or go to, these sites that do all of it for you. No, don't do that. So I'd read that book, and the book that really, before I read Traction, which Traction's kind of a very dry read. I'll let you know that. Book that really sparked my interest because it helped me understand spatially what my place was and like kind of what my role was called Rocket Fuel. And Rocket Fuel, there's some great examples in there of like how it works really, really well. For instance, Steve Jobs and Wozniak. Steve was the visionary and Wozniak was the integrator. So Steve knew how to write code, but he wasn't like Woz. So it took those two people. Ray Kroc had a guy, like Ray was like the idea guy, and he was a driver and going out there and risk and had a big vision, right? But he had a guy that could integrate, and a guy or a gal. I'm just saying, understanding that those roles. And here's the really interesting thing. I'll kind of end on this. When you find someone and put it out there, start to put out there, I'm looking for this person. What are the qualities that they have? And this is not somebody that you just have a good relationship with because you go out drinking together. Don't hire that person. Make sure that, like, what are all the things, like, they're very detail oriented. They're detail oriented is probably the biggest part. That's the granular part. Once I kind of understood my role, it really helped me a lot. And it got me thinking about how to run a business and the right way to run a business. So I highly recommend that. I know I got on a little bit of a stump there, but I hope that for the audience, I saw you writing it down. We learn stuff from each other every time we get together, I find. So yeah, the Traction series, I think, would be a really good base level, along with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. They kind of like just those business books, but not like, Harvard type business books,
So if we take those lessons that we've kind of gone over, which are, some of them are kind of really specific in terms of taxes and some of the marketing efforts, and then you also kind of were talking about higher level thinking in terms of how do I set up my business? What are the people I need to surround myself with? Identifying what your best talents are, and are you really a leader here, or are you someone that's going to work on that granular level? Usually it's not, right? Usually you're the one that's the visionary and the driver and the engine behind. But I agree. I mean, that could be such a limiting factor in the growth of your business is, and I think we've touched on this before, is thinking that you've got to be the one that does it all because no one else can do it better than you.
Yeah.
Right. And stripping that away and
Touched
being
on
like,
it.
whether it's ego or some other reason or whatever the reason is, to really build, in my opinion, a meaningful and large business to a scale that you're envisioning right as you're putting your head down, before you close your eyes at night. That's going to require most of the time other people to help you build that and execute on that. And so bringing them in, evaluating people that you're surrounded yourself with, and maybe even giving them an opportunity that they didn't even know it could possibly exist inside of your organization, to let them blossom, because those basic skills and the level of trust that you have with them is there. So you're like, yeah, I'm willing to take a chance on this person, and I'm sure that if I offer this to them, they could really sink their teeth into it and become this fill in that role and fill in that need that the company could really use. And I've done that a couple of times over my career where I brought someone I didn't expect them to. They didn't think they could do it. They didn't think they had the ability or the energy or the skill set. They were, one young lady in particular makes me think of is, she didn't come from a formal background, so she had these limiting beliefs, but she was an absolute exceptional organizer, and kind of a mother hen figure as well in terms of their ability to bring everyone together. And that was such an invaluable skill, and I needed that in my organization. And although I thought I was pretty good at it, she was exceptional at it. And so, these are some of those moments as you're building something that you don't anticipate or you don't necessarily think about. But I would offer to anyone watching is that you look for those, kind of see those opportunities and see where those opportunities lie within the people that you have, but also, of course, looking outwardly and seeing, okay, this is really a need that we have, and I've got to recruit for that in order to get growing. Yeah, I mean, that's just a little bit I wanted to add to that. But as we talk about growing, I wanted to segue into our next topic with regard to the market and how do we apply some of these things that we just talked about in terms of building your business when there's a bit of a scarcity in terms of what the market is providing with regard to transactions, like the limited number of transactions that exist right now. It is limited. It's not as fruitful as it has been in the recent past. So what of these skills do you think are most applicable for someone it doesn't have much right now and is dealing with today's market? Like, for instance, I'm just glancing at some of the data, and we'll put this article up on the screen too. The home sales turnover. The annual turnover rate is at 30-year low, with only 2.5% of U.S. homes sold over the past year, compared to 4 to 5% in stronger markets. The mortgage rate impact. Obviously, we've talked about that before. The fact that that people are on the sidelines because of affordability. They just can't financially pull the trigger on buying something. Supply and demand imbalance. We still have it, although it's become better in terms of how much supply is available to us or to a potential buyer. It's still not in balance, at least in my opinion. I'd love to get your take on that as well. And then the prices haven't come down. With all that being said, you think that if you're starting to balance out, prices really aren't reflecting that yet. I mean, what does somebody take that has been listening to our marketing portion of this conversation? What of that do you take and apply it to now? What of those strategies do you take and say, you know what, this is the perfect time for that kind of strategy? What is your take on that? What do you think about that? Is it the postcard? Is it the cold calling? Is it proactive?
It's calling. It's the same things that we're talking about here. It's get your CRM in line. And here's the deal. It just takes more conversation. So that comes back to the first thing that we talked about. You asked about knowing the numbers. So be around people that are doing it. And like, for instance, we have a culture of prospecting. I said that 5 years ago, but it didn't resonate within the culture. But the culture has become that. So, if you want to be a part of that, like we do our role play every morning, it is just a part of our culture. The second part I'll say, again, back to the numbers, it's just going to take more contacts because there aren't as many sales. Furthermore, to go a little bit sideways on that, but the media isn't saying, the media is very powerful. I don't mean to understate that. The media is very, very powerful. So we seemingly as a species have people that are don't go with the crowd. Those are kind of the entrepreneurs and the thinkers and that. And not that people that go with the crowd aren't thinkers, but my point is you can get very influenced by media. And my most recent in this, we saw it in 2005. It was just mania. You couldn't. Everybody was like, you're going to buy real estate. When everybody says that, it starts to occupy attention in your mind. Yeah, I got to buy real estate. I got to get in on this. Well, this guy just made $60,000 in 6 months. I'm going to get in on this, right? It just happens, right? Same thing happened with COVID. I don't think it was everybody's making money. I need to make money. It was I got to get out of state, or also people got a lot of money. Money got cheap. And they're like, I might as well buy another house. And, so the media and the price of money kind of together right now, the media and the price of money are not, or the cost of money, if you will, is higher. And the media, therefore, is it's kind of stink. It's not a good time to buy, So within the context of all that, it just takes more calls over time with better skills and I'm just so proud, man. Yes, I've said this before. We got a couple agents on the team going to make over $200,000 this year on a team in a crappiest market that there's been in 30 years. Not even 2010. There's less sales over the last 8 months than in 2010. That tells you where the market's at, right? So if these agents are doing really, really well there, why are they doing well? And I can tell you, because they work on their skills every day. They prospect every single day. And we have a morning accountability text with some of the folks on the team, not everybody. But frankly, the ones that are on that morning accountability text are the ones kind of doing better than the rest. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it does. It's just more calls with better skills, having a more organized system so it's not sticky here, notepad there. Oh, I lost that. I spilled coffee on that. I can't see the name even on that because this guy does it. I'm not saying I've done it. I've lost notepads with a lot of people on it that was damn, I don't know who that was on that notepad. So kind of just full circle back into everything we're talking about, buddy. Just, get a CRM, get your people in there, talk to your sphere. They may not be ready to buy or sell, but no one else is talking to them. Not no one else, but there's very few people talking to them.
What is that? If we double click on the $200,000 agents that are being successful right now, and they're making their calls, right? So what you're advocating, and I agree with you 100%. Are those the calls, just so we can get a little bit more granular and specific for people watching, are those the calls that they're making from inbound leads that are coming in, or they're actually working their sphere and they're just having conversations, whether they're buyers, sellers, et cetera?
We've got a nice balance. So we break down, I think 32% of our business year to date has come from sphere.
Okay.
So I'm still in there too, but I'm 20% of the team's production. So you see what I'm saying? I kind of know my numbers. I'm trying to get more dialed into my numbers because ideally, I think I'm not going to go there. I'm going to stick with your question. So with 30% Sphere, we've got multiple referral sources that we use. So those top agents, here's the deal. Those top agents do get more opportunities, but there's not any favoritism in there other than they're the ones that have put the time in. So now they get more of like the inbound calls from Google. They get the referral networks that I used to call. They come directly to them. So that as the team, you're not going to really, I don't think you're going to really kind of grow a big team by saying, okay, you join my team and work your sphere. like it's, well, you're not going to, people are like, I could do that on my own. Like, yeah, you could. So, but about 30% from Sphere, and then various lead sources. We do Zillow, we do the Google My Business has been fantastic, and then a couple other lead sources, and then some of them circle, and then they go out and they do an open house of maybe a lead that came from me, from the Alex Haig group, from our systems and so forth that create those inbound opportunities, and then they'll circle prospect. So kind of back to your point, man, like always working that phone. And what we found too is that LP Mama, listing price, motivation, agent, mortgage, appointment, money, appointment, what type of appointments are you shooting for? When you have that as a framework, and then you sprinkle in Ford, family, occupation, and recreation dreams for rapport building, you could work in expired like right after this, bro. I get over and I sit down with the team. What do you guys want me to do? What do you want me to call? Because I want to show them, like, I am not above this, and I've mentioned this before, but that framework of LP Mama, and I'm going a little bit further with this, but I did want to just, like, what are they doing? That was really the question that you asked. So there's the sources. They come from various sources, but what are they doing? A, the volume of calls, and B, the quality of the calls.
And are they finding themselves having to educate in terms of the market? Regard to,
that's a good point.
With regard to
not so much. So we try to keep people away. Like, look, I'll give you another example of something I think that they do that a lot of other people don't do. They're setting up buyer appointments. So meet with me in the office or on Zoom. So there's a tactic I'm talking about here right now. And we have a process, like here's what the buyer consult looks like. Also, they'll do a listing appointment via this, but the education part, they go a little farther than CMAs. We use something called trend graphics. Mm-hmm. And so across the country, I'm sure there's maybe even trend graphics across the country. I don't even know. But no, they're across the country. It's a little costly. But that's a service that I pay for to help them provide education. That's what your question was, right? Are they educating more? And so what they're doing, kind of back to what you said, like prices haven't dropped. Inventory's doubled, prices haven't dropped. Not too many agents are able to even pay for that. Let's say that first and foremost, $700 a month for a service like that. Like, you better use it, right? And then not all get the training on how to use it. So I've learned how to use it, and I do as a team leader every Monday. I sit and go, we'll do CMAs and that, but I'll do like, here's how you use this thing, because it's really, really powerful. And that's the education piece that you're talking about, what differentiates you. So they do use as well. I'll leave another little tool here. We like to talk about tools. BombBomb has been great. I've been using BombBomb for a very long time. Don't use it for mass emails, because there's something to do with the stuff about with APIs and stuff like that. It doesn't work as well as like MailChimp or one of those constant contact type things. But from an individual video standpoint, it is hyper powerful, because you can do a screen share. So when you send somebody off a CMA, this is the education part, or also the buyer that's on the other side. I don't know if it's a good time to buy. You do a screen share, and you're educating them, you're showing them. I guess that's, I appreciate you hanging around for me on this, but they're showing people what's going on, and rather than telling them it is good to know the stats, but showing. So does that kind of answer your question?
No, this is
What they're doing?
I'm just letting you flow, because what I want the audience to pick up on is the layers of activity that are happening inside this business building, right? Because you're building business. You've got all these different layers, from data and interpreting data and the habits of calling. And I use the word calling, but it's calling, it's emailing, it's texting, it's reaching people, right? On a consistent, disciplined basis. So you're doing that, and you're bundling that with the practice, so you're only getting better, and you're bundling that with data. So now you're not just hello, what, huh? The sky is blue. You're giving value, right? And you're delivering it on a consistent basis. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And so you're only getting better. You're understanding your numbers, which is also very critical. What's going on in the market, speaking specifically to their situation, right? Because now you're diving into your CRM. You went through, without us really kind of laying the groundwork in this conversation to what does it look like from A to Z. You went through it from A to Z. So now at the end, you've now had this Zoom call or an in-person meeting with somebody, and you've demonstrated that you're on top of it. Getting to that point, you've already distinguished yourself way above and beyond the other agent who's doing this part-time, doesn't have systems, all the different things that would reveal you as not someone who is a practitioner and a master of your craft, which is real estate. Yeah. Which then just brings us all back as like, what is a real estate agent worth nowadays? Well, there's a huge variety. You've got the person I just described, but you also have the person I described prior to that, which is enveloped in the system that you articulately shared with us, that clearly demonstrates that they're on top of it and that they've made this investment in all the different ways of finances, whether it's financed or it's an investment from the Alex Haig Group and your team, or it's their individual investment of time. All of this to say is that that's such a distinguishing element that how can you not be successful at that level?
We're seeing it. We're seeing it in the down market. That's what I'm most proud of.
And then that brings me to another point that I kind of wanted to put a bow on this on is there's plenty of business out there, even in this down market, for people that behave and run their business that way. What do you think about that? Plenty.
That's truth. Hashtag. It's true. There's plenty of business.
There is plenty of business.
What I just what I just brought up, I'm not telling anybody. Like, we can show you. I could get them. It works.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and if this ended up being a bit of a pitch here, what I'm about to say, but if you wanted to connect with those kinds of strategies, you just got to reach out to us. You got to, leave a comment in here, reach out to us. We can get a call in to share with you exactly in more specific terms what we're doing, what those kinds of systems can do with your real estate career, especially if it's not where you want it to be. Because that we've seen this, the systems, the tools may change a little bit, but some of these fundamentals that we're talking about, they don't go away. They don't go away. And so the leadership, the help, the access, all of these things, and most importantly, because even if it all exists and it's on the shelf and beautifully wrapped and shiny and available to you 24 hours a day, if you don't get up to grab it, that's on you. So there's that component as well, right? But it's available, and if you wanted to be a successful real estate agent in today's market, it's absolutely doable. And Florida is, and if you're in Florida, by us, and you're local and you want to have those kind of conversations, it's even more so. I mean, where's this? Hold on a second. Give me a second. Just bear with me. What was this article that just came in? Here. It just came in through the literally before we hit record, from the Florida Realtor News, and I'm sure you get this too from our Florida Association. Florida consumer sentiment continues to climb. So with all the doomsdaying and all the interest rates and the prices of where they're at, these are the messages that still go out. And I don't think it's propaganda because this is always backed by data. The numbers bear out. Increasing optimism is largely driven by positive views on the national economy over the next year. Consumer sentiment should improve overall in the months ahead. So now you bundle everything we've talked about today. You bundle in proper leadership, you bundle in a disciplined agent, and you bundle in a market that is thriving, and the economy with all its challenges, and this isn't all sunshine and rainbows, there's some shit out there, and I'll use it, I'll say that word. But if you want to be successful, stay connected to this channel, stay connected to this Relevant Agent podcast, reach out to Alex and I, we're here to share. And I mean, I was going to wrap it up, but I mean, do you have any parting? I didn't give you a chance to kind of share an opinion on my tirade there, but what do you think of that?
I think there's a wall of money that's about to be unleashed. And this is a cycle, in my opinion. And I think that probably the best time to get into this business is during probably the roughest times.
And you would say that this is the
I kind of did. Well, yeah, we went over the stat. Like lowest sales, I mean, in last 8 months in the last 30 years. So most people would hear that and say, wow, that's not a really good time. It's so nonsensical what I'm trying to say here, or it doesn't, like the little old lady in the checkout line that says, oh, you know, you're in real estate. If this was 3 years ago, you must be doing great. That same little old lady in the checkout line, God bless her, right now, it's probably like, oh, it must be rough out there. Yeah. So my point is that you want to kind of get in when everybody else is leaving. It's so hard. Again, that herd mentality is, it's bad, it's rough. Oh, that's why you're not doing any business. So I go to the board and I hear, and I'm announcing listings, and I don't hear a lot of, and then they're like, oh yeah, it's slow. I'm like, yeah, it's third quarter, it's slow, but like our agents are doing really, really well. But if you're around that group, but my ultimate point in there, man, is that I think that the debt has to get rolled over. And did you hear what the Bank of? I'll go a little sideways here with you, man, as I think this is an interesting subject, and I'd like to get actually your opinion on it. Did you have you heard of Evergrande?
No.
Okay, so Evergrande was the second largest bondholder of real estate in China. So they're basically like the second largest developer of real estate in China. And China is what you call I don't mean to give a macro. I'm not trying to be whatever here, but like China's got a closed system.
Yeah.
Meaning you can't trade the renminbi. So the money can't go out of the country, right? Also within the country, China does not allow people to buy the stock market. It's only for hedge funds and that.
That's right.
So it's very, very kind of like, it's got its capitalistic element to it, but it's got like a communist element to it too, or a socialist, whatever you want to get down that line. My point is, China, as everybody knows, built, well, not everybody knows, but you've heard about like the ghost cities and all this, like crazy. Like they just built like crazy. They don't have OSHA over there. They don't have like, they build like crazy, right? They get things done. They also got, because they've got a closed system, they control their own money. They've got dark pools of money and all this kind of stuff. My point in all this is that Evergrande, which was the second largest bondholder, and this is another really interesting note, that the primary store of wealth for a Chinese citizen is in real estate. Mm-hmm. Some people don't know that. So the government has created that mechanism where people put their money into real estate rather than the stock market. Okay. Well, that's fine until the government prints a lot of money, builds all this stuff, People buy real estate because they don't have any other way. They don't let people hold gold. Like, they really funnel the whole thing into real estate. And because we don't know what's really going on over there because they're very closed, my point in all this is that Evergrande, and this happened like 3 years ago. I brought it up in our role play room, and I got a little pushback. People are like, why are we talking about this? Real estate market's killing it. And I'm like, this stuff happened. It's like things that happen now start to rear their face. I don't know, might be 6 months, might be 12 months, but Evergrande started defaulting on their bonds. And because China can still kind of control that, and the contagion kind of can't get out, and it's not that other countries, it's not so interconnected like the global financial crisis that we went through. Everything was like very, very connected. So anyways, the Bank of China just recently, to kind of try to stop this default, which nobody knows, like, because it's kind of like subprime. Well, only, Michael Burry with his Asperger's and one eye, like, saw, a couple others saw the big, the Big Short. Watch, that's a good movie.
Yeah.
Saw it coming. I think it's be really hard to see what's going to potentially come from this, because there's never been a precedent before where this kind of debt and closed system and all that. But what China did was they lowered as well by 50 basis points. They also lowered the minimum amount to put down on property. And then they also did something to do with corporations owning real estate to like make it like easier to write off or whatever. But they did these things, and basically what they equate it to is like, it was like 1.4 trillion yen or something like that, which equates to about $140 billion. They believe is being unleashed there. This is the same thing that's going to happen here. I mean, we just lowered by 50 basis points. It opens up lending. So that's what I meant by the wall of money is coming. I think that these things, it's not going to be all of a sudden like China's going to go, oh, let's raise by 50 basis points. The Fed is already talking about 2 more rate cuts this year in the order of 50 to 25 basis points. It's coming. Hopefully, well, whatever. I don't need to be right, but it's like I'll be interested to see. We look back when we're at episode 50, be like, oh man, that wall of money that you were talking about, it came, and it really did its thing on real estate and the stock market. So again, back to our thing with one of the reasons I joined EXP was I get stock in the company. So at least I have exposure to an equity market that is going up with pretty much, because China doesn't show, but you can go on the Federal Reserve site, FRED, F-R-E-E-D, and look at the expansion of the money supply. And then you overlay that with real estate, you overlay that with the S&P, you overlay that with gold. It all goes, it's almost like in exact tandems. Like, coincidence? I think not.
Exactly.
So there's my stump. That's what I think is happening.
You hit so many great points, but I think about a couple of things. One is, was this the worst of it? So I think about that. Was this the worst of it? Was this that soft landing? Was this was this the collapse? I just don't see, I have a video out there. It's like 2 or 3 years, like two years old already. And it's one that got so many comments because they're like, no, you're wrong. This is all going to collapse next year. And like, again, 2 years old video, right? This is all going to collapse. And it's like, you're always going to have those doomsdayers regardless of what is going on, right? And so those are the ones that usually are on there on the keyboard commenting. And it's not because I'm trying to be right. What I'm applying and what you eloquently shared with us is we're applying knowledge, data. You're talking about overlaying data in several markets. I mean, I know most people aren't doing that. And so, that's what we're trying to bring is a level of experience and a level of research and observation to a degree that we feel is helpful and gives insight as to what has happened and what's likely to happen next. And as much as you may want these prices to come down to $200,000 or $100,000 on your average median house, it's not going to happen. And again, if we bring this back into the Florida real estate market, it's even less so. I mean, I'm thinking that it's more likely that, we get another really strong weather event, like we recently had here in the northwest corner, and of course Tennessee and the Carolinas, and that really impacts us because it is changing, and the weather patterns do change, and our world changes. There used to be dinosaurs, and then there weren't. So I'm more thinking that it's more likely that something like that is really catastrophic versus the near term with regard to our real estate markets. And so, to your point again, we get these a couple of additional basis points reductions, and there's still a lot of people on the fence that are been waiting for their time and their turn and their mathematical number where it's like, I can afford and I'm going to buy. Finally, I'm just going to stop renting, and I want a piece of what is still, I believe, the American dream is to have real estate and have assets. I know something we both talk about quite a bit here on the pod. We need to prepare for a more fruitful market. That's what I'm thinking. I don't think we're preparing for a sky is falling market, right?
Yeah. I don't think, what was the whole phrase? Too big to fail? It's too big, man. There's only two ways you can go when you have a $35 trillion debt. You can't pay it off.
Yeah, we're beyond that.
You can't. So then, I was watching this gentleman yesterday. He's got some interesting perspectives. I don't align completely with all of them, but I certainly aligned with this one. Was that let's play a game. Let's say that let's say Trump gets in and Elon gets in and they do, and I'm playing a game here. I'm just playing a game. This is not anything hypothetical. And you slash government spending by, I don't know, so draconian would be, 60%, but let's just say you slash it by 30%. The U.S. government is the largest employer in the United States. So what's going to happen there? You're going to form a massive recession because you're going to just basically just lay off a bunch of people, a lot of people. And now they're not going to be able to pay their mortgages. They're not going to be able to, right? So it's my ultimate point here with this guy was, I forget his name, is that there's really no easy way out, And so the easiest way out that people are okay with because they're going to feel better is inflation. What is inflation? Your house goes up, your equities go up. Your gold in your safe that your grandmother gave you or whatever goes up. Bitcoin goes up, right? Assets go up. So people feel better in that, but what happens is it erodes the purchasing power of that underlying currency. So I guess my ultimate point in here is there's no easy way out, but I'm going like that's the way they're going to – it most likely the way it's going to go because they control the money. The money supply is controlled by pretty much the Federal Reserve, which is mildly politicized. So I think it's going to go that way. So I'm just kind of trying – it's not a doomsday at all, dude. I'm just trying to what do I see is the best – what do I see as most likely going to happen? And if that most likely is going to happen, how do I position myself so that I get the best benefit from it?
And we're definitely still kicking the can down the road. We're definitely still band-aiding a lot of things. You're right. A lot of what you just shared right now is short-term, shorter term thinking, right? Not within days or weeks or months or maybe even years, but certainly potentially decades. It's that I still consider to be short-term. And then you layer on there what's going to happen in these next 5-10 years. And I'm going a little sideways here, but as I'm listening to you, it makes me think of this because this is also a topic I spend quite a bit of time on is artificial intelligence and its effect on our lives moving forward and the displacements it's going to create for a lot of jobs. So as you touched on jobs there, you touched on employment. That is something that I'd love for us to maybe, kick around. I don't know how much time you spend on researching that, but that's another elephant in the room that we cannot ignore.
Yep.
It's real. So take your head out of the sand. It is real. It can do some incredible things. Some that I can speak on specifically because, we're working on some of those things internally as a company. So I have my hand in those. So you can see the writing on the wall. And so you start to combine all of these things. And buy your real estate, let it increase in price, pick your fruits, make your investments, try to get your like a good little squirrel, get your nuts gathered and have something, because it is going to continue to change, but too big to fail. I agree. We just have to keep kicking this down the road, for better or for worse, and finding ways to keep the machine going, because I don't see this day where all of a sudden I don't see it, where we all of a sudden made so much money that, the deficit is zero.
Yeah. It's I love that. We've talked about this before. I love talking with people like you, man, about these really broad and uncertain. There's certainties within it, and then there's it's just man, so much of what we're talking about is speculation. And anybody that says they know, no way. You don't know. We don't know. Touching on it, let me actually. I want the audience to know, the people that I kind of watch, and you might want to check this guy out, man. Let me look him up here real quick, because my friend, my accountability partner, actually sent him to me, and I was like, man, I was looking at this guy yesterday. I was like, the universe is so interesting. So he actually did a piece. I'll send it over to you, but
I want to tell you about the upcoming
melt up. So what is here? What the heck is this guy? Give me his freaking thing.
I want to tell you about the upcoming
clear value tax. And he actually was talking about, which is the first time that I'd ever heard where the kind of nexus of AI and labor came to a head. And it was the longshoremen, right? The strike. Part of their strike is they want guarantees that things won't be automated. Yeah. This is the nexus. This is just where this is starting to the union's going we don't want you to take away. Yeah. This is it. A point where it's a really big organization and a really big new technology that's potentially going to disrupt that. And they're we're trying to fight against this thing.
And I'm sorry, but it makes me think so much of this analogy of an earthquake and the tectonic plates that are constantly rubbing against each other, and they're grinding and grinding until they pop, and one just pops above the other one, right? Because the force is just so unstoppable. This is going to happen. It's going to pop, and
yep.
I sympathize 100%. But I also chuckle in that you can't stop the innovation. I'm sorry that you're in an industry that is going to be affected by this. But the idea of, and I'm sorry, I'll let you pop back into where you were, but the thing that caught me was this whole idea of trying to negotiate, not being replaced by AI or limiting the amount of AI that is integrated into. No, we've got to find different solutions. We can't be I'm holding on to this bag forever, and this is what I do, and this is all I know. No, and this is just me thinking. This is for the opinion, the base of opinions that I come from is we have to continue to innovate. We have to continue. If a robot replaces me as a real estate agent tomorrow, oh well, the robot's clearly doing it better, faster, smarter, whatever it is. I'm there in the stands. I'm cheerleading the innovation. As a good entrepreneur, I'm also looking for my opportunity to leverage that. And I shared with you before we got on the call some of those ways that I'm doing that, right? I'm leveraging my experience, my background, and forging it into a new industry that's coming, into a new business that could be viable. right? And I shared that with you. That's where I am. I'm not entrenched in this. This is what I do, and this is all I do, and this is what my family has done for 18 generations. There's romance and love, and I respect it, and all that good stuff in there. There's a lot of great stuff in there. But to try to stomp something out because you don't like it, everything's above you. Everything's above me. Everything's above you. We're just one person. Everything moves much greater and much faster than us as individuals. And that's okay, because we're a society. We are a society where it's all bigger, and it hopefully is all for the better. Sorry.
No, thank you, man. That this is the passion, that I think you and I both have for where we are, where we're going, being conscious of where we are. And this goes way back to the beginning of our conversation here is we're talking about data, like knowing your numbers. You just need to make more calls. You need to be better with those calls. You're talking about AI. Like AI is and robots are going to take over when it's faster, better, cheaper, safer. Right? Isn't that what free market is about? So the union in its whole thing, and I get it. And they've definitely had their place, I think, for protecting workers because workers were very exploited. But they became it's like so many things, man. Pendulum swings, and they get overly powerful, and they get overly like holding on. But look, the robots are coming. It's coming. Anybody that doesn't look at the stuff that, Tesla and who's the other one? I watched him the other day. But anyways, the point in all this, Eddie, I really appreciate these conversations because I think that I'll go a little sideways on this, and maybe you can give a final thought on it. I think that what we're doing and I'm trying to think ahead, in especially like 3 to 5 years, real human interaction and thought and these kind of conversations, this kind of discourse, I think that this is the kind of thing that's going to be really, really valuable. And I think what we're doing right now is valuable. We don't have a big audience right now, and that's okay. We're not doing it for that. I'm doing it to leave something for my daughter. I'm doing it because you help me think more. You help me feel more. You help me see more. And that's why I'm doing it. We got this great thing, EXP, and certainly we'd love people to be a part of it, and we believe in it. But all that aside, the bigger picture is these conversations, I think, are really salient now and into the future. So I don't know if you want to give final thoughts on that. Maybe we keep going.
That's a great final thought. I mean, I don't know how else to add to that. It's where you and I are coming from with this whole, endeavor of this pod. We get really granular with some things, but then we also pull it back because we're able to. I think the luxury that you and I have is we're able to see beyond the business and the daily of the business, and whatever the business is, but the daily of the business, the daily of the doing. Partly because of age, partly because of experience, partly because of kind of who we are as well too. We found ourselves in a spot where we're not stuck in it. We're able to see forward, and then when we see forward, we're also open to these other ideas that you and I from time to time get passionate about, and we can clearly see it in each other when we start talking about it. And so that's what I like. That's what I like about what we do here. And again, our audience is still small, and maybe it will grow, maybe it won't. But I think the value is in what you described, is that we get to do this together. And at the end of the day, if we're serving each other in some capacity, I mean, that's a great gift. I mean, that's what we want to do, is to serve. And we've gotten to that place. And so hopefully, this episode, and if you haven't watched others, click around to consider subscribing to the channel. But that's what we want to do. We want to serve, and sometimes it's in the minutia of the details of the specifics that have been successful for us as real estate professionals in that industry. a little bit of an overview of what, we're seeing in the market, but also, not being so tied to the business that we're not able to be forward thinkers and share some insights as to what we see coming that, based on our experience, seems logical and seems like it's something that you may want to maybe pay attention to. And so, I mean, with that, brother, thank you so much for this conversation, as always. We'll see you all on the next one.
Thanks, brother. We'll see you on the next one.